I mean, like we've seen with, I mean, I think maybe you disagree, but like I think someone like James Lindsay is ultimately proving himself to be a big problem because he's basically admitted that he
Yes.
he's been mind poisoned by
Yes.
he has no vision of post-modernity outside of Marxism and communism.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
No,
his son.
yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah. Based on some of the tweets that have been
I
coming
mean,
out
he's
of late.
realized that the future is either we like dogmatically protect this version of liberalism that he thinks is okay. Like he thinks that he's found the line in the sand that's okay, arbitrarily, of course, about his preferences of what he thinks
Right.
are.
Right.
And he's
He and
afraid,
David
though,
French and every, yeah. Yeah.
like he
Right. Right.
sees what's really coming, which is the Christian nationalist
Yeah.
future, which is this
Yeah.
revival, and he's terrified of it because it's fundamentally anti-liberal. Like it doesn't have this like we must preserve everyone's human right to do whatever they want at all times.
Yeah.
It
He
doesn't
can't
have
think.
that,
Yeah. He
and
can't
that's a
think
bigger
outside.
danger to him apparently than the left.
Yeah, you got it. He can't think outside of those boxes. I mean, that's, in fairness, that's what Alexander Dugin was trying to do with the fourth political theory. Is how does Millerman put it? He's trying to create that space so as to be able to think, there aren't only three options. It's not only liberalism, fascism, or communism. You can't. There is a fourth option, and then of course his Dasein and all this sort of stuff. But I think more broadly, it's post-secularism, it's post-globalism, it's post-modernity. It's moving out of those frames of reference and allowing, and Dugin, in fairness to his extraordinary thought, it's allowing every culture to basically awaken its arche, its core, its sacred. That's very specific to where it is geographically and all this sort of stuff. We talk about land powers versus sea powers and all that. But I mean, cultural anthropologists would say that rituals ultimately are the interaction of populations with their specific ecological order to create a unique culture. And at the heart of every culture is a cult, which we call the sacred. And every population has its own sacred. I'm going to be in Japan, and in a couple of days here. As a matter of fact, when this airs, I'll already be in Japan. And one of the things that I love when I visit Japan is just sensing their own particular sense of the sacred. That's so uniquely Japanese. And if they were to disappear off the planet, that sense of the sacred, that sense of the eternal, of the immortal, that would disappear with them. And that's, to me, one of the great evils of liberalism. Is liberalism basically tries to bury unique expressions of the sacred that you can't get apart from those expressions. Hey, gang, with all the insanity at our southern border and with bumbling Biden's deliberate incompetence, there has simply never been a better time to protect your assets with the timeless value of gold and silver. And that is where our good friends over at Goldco come in, gang. Click on that link below and learn the 3 simple steps you can take right now to protect your savings the way patriots throughout the centuries have always protected their assets. And that's, of course, with gold and silver. In fact, Goldco are patriots just like us, gang. They want you to succeed so much, they're offering you up to $10,000 in free silver while supply lasts. So don't wait. Click on that link below or visit my special website, turleytalkslikesgold.com.
And I think it's important, again, Thomas Jefferson expressed this in his private writings plenty, but it's important to read the public writings of, I think, the other authors of the Federalist Papers and other people besides just Jefferson as well, because Jefferson was one of the most hardcore Enlightenment thinkers of the Founding Fathers, and people are able to read so much, like they're able to, I think, miss what you just said, like that idea, and apply it to America with certain curated, if they don't read the full context of what our Founding Fathers actually thought about our nation. And like you said, if the Japanese people all left Japan, and let's say all the Chinese people moved in, Japan would be China. It wouldn't be Japan.
It would be,
anymore,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And if America becomes a land where a majority of people, if all that's left is the black urban core in the South, and then immigrants from the New World in South America, and then all of that, like that's not the Anglo-Saxon, culture that was brought into that the United States kind of. I mean, even Antonin Scalia, like an Italian,
Yeah, no, and
spoke about this.
And the problem, I mean, or Sam Huntington said, the only way that would work is if we were fundamentally an ideology rather than an identity, because as you move from modernity to post-modernity, you move from ideology to identity. Ideologies no longer have the sustaining power that we thought they had rooted in scientific rationality. That's why, again, the Ted Cruz comment I found so laughable. I mean, that was an ideologue speaking. Lindsey Graham, when he opens his mouth, that's an ideologue speaking. We are leaving the age of ideology and we're moving to the age of identity. And that's where culture, custom, tradition, ethnicity, and the like, religion in particular, all come back powerfully. That's what was the most powerful movement on the left over the last 2 years. An African nationalist movement called BLM. It's identity is inescapable today. And we tend to identify, no pun intended, identity politics only on the left. But identity politics is redefining politics as a whole. And so, with civic nationalism, ethno-nationalism, civilizationalism, tribalism, you name it, all goes back to this notion that this notion that an ideology can hold us together, a secularized replacement to the classical religions and rituals that awaken 1,000-year civilizations. These enlightenment-based ideologies that are barely 100 or 200 years old, that are all cracking up all over the place. The notion that that's going to hold us together, irrespective of any other identity markers, it's been reputed by the left, let alone the right. So it only survives, frankly, in echo chambers at this point.
And I'm going to give the people in the audience a little bit of a license to get a little indignant. Don't take on some kind of victim mentality or anything like that, but just think about it. If you're someone, look, if you're not an immigrant, you're someone whose family's been here for hundreds of years, and you're just a white person, or so like Steve, his family was from the UK, not that long ago, and on one side, like, think about like how you're allowed to identify yourself in America, right? Like, we're a nation. What do we always hear? We're a nation of immigrants. We're a nation built on slavery. All these things. We're a nation built on the blood of the Native Americans. All these people, they're allowed to have their identity, and then it's expressed by the American power structure. But the majority of people that were just people that were here when the nation started, like, you're not really allowed to like have your thing, like we've just been talking about. So
yeah, that's the multiculturalism, right? Multiculturalism allows
that.
Yeah, it allows for ethnocentricity for minority groups, but disallows it for the majority. And again, Carol Swain says it's an unsustainable social structure.
It's very important for people to recognize that. And that's a whole big way around my question about Erdogan and Assad and Syria. We love to get deep into it. But when it comes to these identity issues, we're in Eastern Europe and the Middle East, they still kind of get this stuff. They didn't get as poisoned by the Enlightenment. But Western Europe we're, like you said, the UK, like we don't even like to think about the politics in the UK sometimes, just because of how nowhere it's going.
Oh yeah, right, nowhere, exactly. So how absolutely paralyzed.